Mayor and council members, my report will be pretty short tonight. Tomorrow night, we have Planning Commission. We have public hearing regarding the comprehensive plan changes for the natural environment chapter and transportation chapter for the comprehensive plan. So we'll be having that tomorrow night, and also beginning some discussion on highway signage. So that might be an interesting meeting, but it's just very initial bit of work on that. The second item I have is that I haven't discussed it with Richard yet or with the mayor, but we have applied for 2 additional CFT grants for properties along Milwaukee Creek. Most people call it a ditch, but it's Milwaukee Creek, to see if we can purchase some properties along the creek there to help preserve them and help provide enhancement of the creek sometime in the future. We just put them in. We don't know if we have the money yet, but we do know we do have money that can match the grant funding, should we get them. That's important for tonight.
Councilmember Steiger.
Yes.
We're going to have a meeting with the cable along 167. I believe it's on the 26th, I think, here. 26th at 4 o'clock. So I don't know whether you had planned on attending this or not, but I'm sure that the signage issue will probably be coming up on that, because a number of the businesses along the West Valley have asked me about the signage issue. So even if you can't make it, if you could kind of give Richard or somebody or Lance some kind of what may have came up from the Planning Commission meeting, so we can give them something that was going to be happening with.
Yes, certainly can.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's the only copy I have.
Okay. Lance surely can get me a copy. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Jack. Okay, public safety.
I really don't have much. We did set dates for the open house and the bike rodeo. I'll bring that to the staff meeting tomorrow. With, I know it's the second week of June for the bike rodeo and third week the open house. We have a public safety committee meeting scheduled this Thursday at 6:30 here in the chambers. Are there any questions?
Questions from council?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, any reports from council members that is not related to a committee? Anyone? No? I'm sorry, Councilmember Case.
I worked on the solid waste proposed language for the RFP over the weekend, and I'll be providing that to Richard to forward to Carol, and hopefully we can meet after the meeting tonight, just so that second, third set of eyes look at it, see if I missed anything.
Perfect, thank you. So, Finance Committee.
We met on March 17th. Now we established that I'll maintain the chairmanship, as Councilmember Walker already is the chair of the Technology Committee, as well as the Council President. We discussed the Transportation Benefit District, just talking about how we can dedicate revenues. If we create dedicated revenues within our own budget, and it'd be transferred to the TBD. And then we also discussed councilmanic bonds being used for that purpose for street maintenance. Discussed that the best way to give the citizens a return on their investment is to improve their streets. That improves their property value, so they see something immediate. It's just conceptual right now, and just things that we want the council to be apprised of, and to think about where you want to support certain projects and the use of those bonds. Sewer utility fees and expenditures, there was some discussion about that. An Excel spreadsheet was provided to us. Wasn't easy to understand, but we kind of got the gist of how the monies are spent. future agenda items, we just talked about, you know, how to determine, or how to handle the growth in Pierce County if property starts becoming available and zoned and utilized, how we can best support those projects. Again, the use of council managed bonds to improve streets and things like that. Also discussed I went ahead and briefed Finance Committee on the use of the Fund 333, the fire impact fees, for the replacement of the 9 village hydrants that are earmarked for replacement, and I still got to get Lance I got the map, but I just don't have the actual information regarding that particular hydrant for each of the 9 hydrants, and as soon as I get that, I'll forward that to Lance.
Questions? Okay, Governance Committee.
We meet on the 7th of April.
7th of April, okay. Human Services Committee, we meet this week. Tomorrow, 6:30?
Yes.
Okay. Senior Center, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll be there.
Bring candy.
Maybe. Okay. Public Safety Committee, I think we just discussed, we meet on Thursday, 6:30 here in council chambers.
Jeannie, are you going to be able to attend?
Thursday?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then Vic, are you going to be able to attend?
I won't Lance those days.
Okay, well, we're going to have Jean has offered her services to record the meeting so that you can view it, because I know that you wanted to see what happened at the meeting. So.
Okay. All right, so that will be 6:30 here in council chambers.
Yes.
Public Works Committee,
We meet on the 1st.
the first. Keep looking to turn.
April 1st.
April 1st. Okay. Technology Committee.
We talked about audiovisual systems,
Audio.
audio,
Speakers
like
thing?
speakers and microphones. We received another proposal, the director in Milton.
I think he's a consultant right now, but I think he's special projects. I don't know the title yet.
So, we've worked with Ron in the past, he was with the city of Auburn, he's with the city of Milton now doing consulting work. He provided us an additional bid for a portable microphone system. So we talked briefly about that, and we talked about the purchase of a new upgraded FTR Gold system for the recording, for both the court and council chambers. And we've asked that staff prepare some discussion points for the April 6th workshop. So it's substantially lower from the previous bid that we looked at, so we can might be something we're interested in. So we also talked really briefly about a social media policy. We're going to start working in that direction for the city, as well as a disposal destruction policy for hard drives and whatnot. We've asked staff to send us a copy of what the current destruction policy or surplus policy is. We can look at incorporating that. And then Ron from Milton has brought a draft contract for IT services. That's sort of a IT consortium with Milton and other small cities. So it's something at least the committee's interested in at this point, but looking at what they can offer us in kind of costing and whatnot. It's very early in the planning process. It's meeting with other cities to gauge interest. So the more cities that sign on, the cheaper it gets. And, so we're going to continue to work with Richard and Ron on that. That's it. The next one we meet on Thursday, April 16th at 5 o'clock in the mayor's office.
Okay, so the park board, I know that they didn't have a meeting because they didn't have a quorum. So, and I believe that meeting was rescheduled for March 31st?
Correct.
March 31st at 6:30. Okay? Excellent. So planning commission, we just heard is meeting tomorrow, right?
Correct.
Okay, Pierce County Regional Council.
Nothing to report.
All right. Sound Cities Association, I'll have some information that will be in your next workshop just to get a consensus from council on some items that were discussed at the last Sound Cities Association meeting. So, just a couple things to bring to your attention. Skateboard?
Very briefly, there was a legislative letter that went out under the skateboard heading, iterating the South County City's support for the legislation package that's before the legislature. General knowledge, not any specific project, but just supporting the need for additional revenue to apply to transportation. Additionally, there was a presentation from the City of Fife and the Port of Tacoma. Even though they're both in Pierce County, they were looking for support for improvements in the Fife corridor that would have an impact and improvement on the I-5 corridor to improve traffic through there. And part of the justification was that it is a very important freight corridor, and they were just looking to present the concept of the project and then solicit some feedback and support from the board.
Okay, questions? All right, Valley Regional Fire Authority.
Just Kansas and Payville, something.
Next on the agenda, we'll move on to old business, starting with resolution number 2015-239, authorizing the execution of supplemental agreement with P.C.S.
Good evening again. To introduce this topic for the resolution, in summary, we have a representative from AHBL here tonight. If there are some detailed questions that you have that I can't field quickly from the dais here. But as we've talked about this particular project on West Valley, through the engineering effort to date, it was discovered early on, fairly early on through the initial phase, that there was a fish barrier potential with the two culverts at Jovita Creek. And this was raised by the Muckleshoot tribe and confirmed as a possibility through Washington State Department of Transportation. Because of this, the first part of this project, the phase one, is to do an initial assessment to confirm whether the two culverts that are crossing West Valley at this location are in fact fish barriers. If they are, the second phase would do the design effort to design fish-friendly culverts, if you will, or to mitigate the barrier that would be represented. So the cost to do this work is an additional $79,000 in design effort, and it's more than just design. There's a biology component where you have to look at the creek and some of the fish cycle and what fish potentially are in the creeks are impacted. There's additional survey required as well, and then there's some potential or additional civil work to look at this as well. So it's a pretty comprehensive look that wasn't anticipated at the beginning of this project. I think as far as looking at the dollar amount, staff has reviewed the figures, and they look reasonable for the type of work that is required to get the assessment done. And so as a staff, we are looking for council's endorsement to support this particular project so we can keep it moving forward.
Questions from council? What's council's pleasure?
Move to approve 2015-239.
Councilmember Jones is the speaker motion.
Well, like you said, it was an unexpected development, and with the project, we're trying to establish that West Valley project for the King County and the Pierce County portion, and this is going to drastically impact what we can do until we find out what we have to do. So there's not much else we can do about it. Just have to move it forward.
Councilmember Steiger.
Well, we have to get our design done so we're in line when monies do come available.
Comments from the audience?
Jean Bencher, 3724 55th Avenue South, and friends of the Lower White River. I'd like to let the council know that a couple of years ago, King County Roads put in a fish-friendly culvert underneath 376th Street, which is next to the Morgan parcel, it's the outflow of Trout Lake, and actually put in a very large box culvert for the potential of fish being able to make it back up to Trout Lake. And they put spawning gravels in the box culvert under 76. This is some evidence that there are spawning salmon in Jovita Creek. And also anecdotally, turn of the century, early Edgewood residents would get salmon 2 and 3 feet long out of Jovita Creek, and up to the turn of the building of the interurban railroad through there. So the Puyallup River Tribe also does a survey, and they have an annual report, and their survey shows there's potential salmon either using the creek or trying to spawn in the creek above West Valley Highway. So I do want to support going ahead with this design allocation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the audience? Seeing none, further comments from council. Councilmember Kay.
Yeah, it's frustrating to look at something like this because when you understand the biology of fish, when you create a culvert-like scenario, fish don't swim into darkness typically, and when we're looking at the width of the culvert that would need to go in, and even if you did what they do, which is usually like a 5-foot culvert half filled with gravel, to make the entryway unobstructed and an easy path to go through, a lot of times the distance traveled is a discouragement for the fish to go through. And, it just seems like we create, government creates, the tribes are creating roadblocks to keep us from being able to utilize our traffic ways and our properties in a manner that's productive for what we do, and a lot of times it's for nothing.
Further comments?
And not so much in response, but just as additional information to share with council that the Washington State Department of Transportation, through the court, federal court, has been mandated to remove fish barrier culverts where there are state highways. And so with the 167 improvements that are coming, they are definitely anticipating having to put in fish-friendly culverts and passages for any improvements on the 167 project. And the driver behind that was the federal court case that the tribes of Washington State had levied and adjudicated in court. So that's some of the justification behind why we're having to do some of this work, is it's been adjudicated and found that there are barriers that we have to remove when they are in fact discovered. And that's the point of this study, is to find if we do have a barrier or we do not. And if we do, then we can design for it.
Further comments from council? Seeing none, roll call, please. Councilmember Garberding? Aye. Councilmember Jones?
Aye.